Latest updates out of the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia says that it is open to peace with Ukraine, but achieving its goals remains a priority, according to a Kremlin spokesperson on Sunday. He said it days after President Trump gave Moscow a 15-day deadline to agree to a ceasefire or face tougher sanctions. Russian officials have repeatedly rejected accusations from Ukraine and its Western partners of stalling peace talks. We do have Hal Petrus still here. Hal, Kremlin says it's open to peace, but let's make something clear. They also want to achieve their goals. They say that's a priority. Remind the people at home. What are Russia's goals, and are their goals compatible with peace?
Well, I would put it this way, Austin. Their idea of peace would be when there's no piece of Ukraine left that's still under Ukrainian control. They still have gone back as recently as this last week, pushing out these absolutist, sort of extreme goals that Ukraine is intrinsically part of Russia. We've heard multiple spokesmen from the Kremlin saying that over and over again. Now they kind of caveat a little bit of this. There are 5 oblasts, which are provinces or like states, that they largely control. Some of them they absolutely control, but there are a lot of them they're actually in contention, particularly up in the Donbass region. And there what they would like to see is that Ukraine simply pulls out of this altogether, basically forsakes that sovereign Ukrainian territory, completely cedes it over to Russia, and that's what they're asking for. Now, first off, Ukraine can't agree to that under their constitution. They cannot agree to just simply give away sovereign territory like that to Russia. The second thing is it's a horrible precedent, and it appears that is not acceptable, certainly to Ukraine, but it's not acceptable to NATO, the European Union membership, and frankly, with the clear shift that we have seen with the Trump administration, it's not acceptable to the United States either. So what he's done is he's gone out there and basically said, yeah, we agree with peace if we get everything that we set out to do, which is a pardon the expression, but it's kind of a nothing burger, if you will. And I think that's how it's going to be received, which is more over the top Russian rhetoric about seizing and taking all of Ukraine.
President Trump has repeatedly called for peace in this war. The way he usually phrases it, Hal, is that he wants people to stop dying. But people are still dying, and the war shows no signs of slowing. At what point does this hit that breaking point with the White House?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think there's more likely scenario. What seems to be rolling out. Condoleezza Rice was talking about this too. She sees this she didn't use the term strategic inflection point, but she sees this as a huge shift in the Trump administration policy, that they're not going to just blindly pursue peace at any price, so to speak. That they are really looking at this and they see the number one problem towards any sort of settlement being Putin and the Kremlin. And so what you're seeing is we've kind of opened up sending our weapons, after that little brief pulse of sending weapons recently. We've opened up sending weapons. We've kind of set up a new conduit for sending weapons, a new way to fund sending those weapons using NATO European membership funds to pay for U.S. weapons going over. So all that's happening. A couple of things behind the scenes is most of the 49 M1 Abrams tanks from Australia that were promised to Ukraine have now been delivered. They are in Ukraine. It doesn't seem like much, but that could be something critical to maybe getting a breakthrough on some of the front lines that have been rather static for a long period of time there. So what you're seeing is that the U.S. is shifting towards this and really looking towards a change in the military dynamic tied to what's going to happen on the diplomatic side. Frankly, when you're talking peace negotiations and stuff, it's always the military dynamic that drives whatever happens to the diplomatic side. And I say that because a lot of times I'll hear people come out and say, oh, it's just we have to do diplomacy, we have to do diplomacy. It's like diplomacy is simply talking about recognition of what's on the ground or what could happen or what is happening. It doesn't occur in a separate universe away from what's real reality is, on the ground in terms of where forces are and everything else. So, that's why I think we're kind of shifting towards is really focusing on the military side to shift the conditions whereby the discussion can take place.
Who's winning on the battlefield, Hal? Who has the upper hand? I've read recently that the machines will make some incremental gains during their summer offensive.
But if you look at the amount of forces they put in, they should have made tremendous gains. They are not making much headway at all. They've taken I think they've taken potentially 3 small towns in the last couple of weeks. Not, you know, and keep in mind that when they finally take these towns, there's no Ukrainians there. They've all pulled back and stuff. And in many cases, I'll see these guys say 3 strategic villages or whatever. And rarely are they all that strategic. It's just a modest gain of ground. What we are seeing though is that Ukraine has really ramped up its drone production, not just first-person view drones on the front lines, which they're doing in droves. That is a drone-intensive environment from both sides. But as Russia has launched these massive waves of drones, twists, and missiles into Ukraine, Ukraine has also responded by sending fairly large waves of drones deep into Russia, to include in Moscow. And so that's bringing the war home to Russians. And then the other thing, and maybe it'll take a while before it kind of metastasizes in Russian society, but as you know, in June, they went over 1 million Russian men lost in this war over this 3+ year period. To me, it's pretty impressive, a pretty big number. That's something you really kind of focus on. You go, comes Russia, millions in, most of the killers, debilitated, if you will. They were certainly removed from the front lines, removed from any military service in Ukraine. But when you look at that, you wonder how long will it take the Russians to really understand what that means. And I think that one, combined with this growing recession in the Russian economy, may have a unique dynamic to put pressure on Putin. Now, I should mention Zelensky has said he wants to have peace talks, and he's actually proposed, and the U.S. has said it as well. They've actually proposed another set of peace talks, potentially in Istanbul. We'll see if that takes place.
Interesting to see it does take place. Of course, also curious to see if there will ever be a face-to-face meeting between Putin and Zelensky sometime in the near future. Hal Kemper, we have done 2 segments, and we have a 3rd one coming up. We're going to talk about the Middle East. First, before we do that, a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Some things are just better together. Introducing U.S. Bank Business Essentials, a powerful combination of checking and card payment processor with no monthly maintenance fee and quick access to the money you earn. Together, we can make managing your business easier. That's the power of us.
See that brand new Hyundai Santa Fe? We paid.
Looks like we're out of time. Right. Inhale, exhale.
Enjoy the new car.
Exhale.
Showroom, Hyundai Getaway Salesman. Get a Hyundai Palisade with 0% APR for 60 months, plus 0 payments for 90 days, or up to $2,750 bonus cash. Hurry in.
What's up?
Like about January, fire 350 foot tree on fire. it's just somebody had to be held accountable for it, and in this case, we found the guy, so, it makes me feel good to know that went to Kentucky because they're a Nike team, and the Nikes I wore that day still work, so.
Little free out there for Nike. All right, well, you know what? American heroes, Devontae Marco, Scott Mitchell, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for joining us today. It's an honor and a lovely way to end a week in which we've covered a lot of stuff that isn't so great. So thank you so much.
Polls show that Americans are paying attention to some revelations in the Epstein case. CNN chief data analyst Harry Henson met with what the numbers tell us about how the public and the president's base feel about the story that won't seem to go away.
Interest in the Epstein files is sky high, and the American public does not trust what the government is selling them. What are we talking about here? Is the government hiding Epstein's alleged client list? Get this, 69% of Americans agree that the federal government is, in fact, hiding Epstein's alleged client list versus just 6% who say that they are not. And get this, a majority of Republicans and Democrats do in fact agree on this issue that the government is hiding Epstein's alleged clients. You can never get a majority of Republicans and Democrats to agree on anything, but they do agree on this particular issue. And perhaps not so surprisingly, you get a plurality of Democrats and Republicans agreeing that they are dissatisfied with the amount of information that the government has released so far. What are we talking about this? Well, we're talking about, if we look at Republicans and independents who lean Republican, 43% are dissatisfied with the amount of information released so far. Compared to, get this, just 4% of Republicans who are in fact satisfied with the amount of information released so far by the federal government when it comes to the Epstein case. And we look over here on this side of the screen among Democrats, get this, 60% of Democrats and independent leading Democrats are in fact dissatisfied with the amount of information released so far. And get this, just 3% of Democrats are in fact satisfied so far with the amount of information released. Now you see this, you see that the plurality of Republicans are dissatisfied. So how is it impacting President Trump's overall approval rating? Republicans who approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing. Get this, in our CNN SSRS poll, it was 86% prior to this whole Epstein saga. Now, it's 88%. In fact, the percentage of Republicans who approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing has actually climbed a little bit according to our CNN polling. How about Quinnipiac? 87% before this whole Epstein saga started approved of the job that Donald Trump was doing among Republicans. Now, it's 90%. So we see agreement between the CNN polling and the Quinnipiac polling. Yes, Republicans are not thrilled with how the government is responding in the Epstein case, but so far they are in fact not taking it out on Donald Trump, at least when it comes to his overall approval rating. Now you might be asking yourself, why? Well, I think this nugget gives it all away. Republicans who said the nation's top issue was the Epstein case, get this, 0, 1. One respondent, not 1%, one respondent of Republicans said that the nation's top issue was in fact the Epstein case. What we're dealing with is a public that is very much dissatisfied with how the government is responding so far to the Epstein case. A lot of folks, both on the right and the left, do in fact believe that the government is hiding Epstein's alleged client list, but yet when it comes to his approval rating, Donald Trump's approval rating with the Republican base, so far they're sticking with them, because at this point, even if they believe the government is hiding something, they don't know it's all bad reporting. Back to you.
It's a Jet Tuesday. Right now, you can save £50 per person. Sound familiar? That's because you've probably heard the Jet2 slogan in TikTok videos. It's a Jet2 holiday. And right now, you can save £50 per person. Vacationers in your situation. The trending sound has been used in more than 1 million videos on TikTok alone.
And now this is just completely blown up out of nowhere, and it just feels like.
Zoe Lister is the talent behind the viral sensation.